Hello and welcome to another edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. I'm doing another installment tonight on my series, Why Did I Want This Gun? What gun are we talking about tonight, and how could I possibly still have anything else to talk about in this series? Well, I have quite a few different variations of guns. Tonight I want to talk about one of my favorites, the shotgun. More specifically, the Mossberg 500 and Maverick 88 series shotguns. The Mossberg 500 shotgun has been around since 1961. It's been produced by the O.F. Mossberg & Sons Company out of New Haven, Connecticut. They have been producing this gun for a long time, and they have well over 11 million copies of this gun sold, making it the most sold pump-action shotgun in history to date. The Mossberg 500 design is also built by a company called Maverick in Texas, and this is one of such models. The Mossberg 500 shotguns were made with various different gauges, and they were also made by various different companies. You had the Mossberg 500A, or AB, or ATP, which were 12-gauge variants. Then you had the Mossberg 500C, which was a 20-gauge variant. You had the Mossberg 500E, which is a 410 bore variant, and then you also had the 16 gauge, which I'm not sure of the variation for the letter variant on that one. Mossberg also produced the Mossberg 590, which was the military version, which had a totally different finish. It also had an aluminum trigger group instead of a plastic trigger group. They also made the Mariner versions, which were stainless steel models. They were produced under the Mossberg name, they were produced under the New Haven name, they were produced under the Revelation name, and they were produced under the Maverick 88 name. The action in all different cases is pretty much the same, the function is the same. The only differences you might see is either the finish, the wood stock and the foregrip that you would see on these, and the location of the safety. The Mossberg models, the safety was always mounted on the back of the receiver or a tang safety. The Maverick 88s were usually trigger group mounted safeties, and the other various versions were usually on the back of the tang as well. But there are various different versions out there. You can still get great deals on these shotguns, and they are just wonderful to shoot. Mossberg also produced the Cruiser model, which is kind of what you see here, a shorter barrel with a pistol grip. They also made the JIC, or just-in-case Mariner model, that came in a nice camouflage tube. They made the Shockwave, which was a 14-inch barrel version with a bird's head grip. They made the Nightstick, which was the same as the Shockwave, but with the nice wood furniture. They offered many variants. This particular firearm here, you've seen on my channel many times. This is a Mossberg Maverick 88 12-gauge shotgun with a 8-shot magazine tube and a 20-inch barrel. They called this the Persuader model, and this was not my first shotgun that I bought, but this was one that I originally wanted to buy when I was looking for a Mossberg 500. Now, I've kind of decked this out with some 1970s vintage wood furniture to try to make it look like a retrograde model because I like the original models. This particular one came with a plastic stock and a plastic forend or a plastic pump, and I really hated the plastic furniture because it was so light, it made it very difficult to shoot. Now, why did I want a Mossberg 500 shotgun, or why did I want several variants of the Mossberg 500 shotgun? TVs and movies, again, going way back to that. I mean, you don't really have to look far. Old police movies, old police TV shows, any military show that has shotguns in it, you know, going way back in the day, they always had some form of a pump-action shotgun. I wanted it mainly because of TVs and movie, but in a more practical fashion, I wanted something that had a lot of firepower for home defense. I also wanted something for skeet shooting and trap shooting, sporting clays and things like that, and the Mossberg 500 series of shotguns were always very affordable. They have a very good track record, even better, I think, than the Remington 870. Yeah, I don't care about those because all I want is Mossberg shotguns. But they have a better track record, in largely part to when they're built, the bolt actually has 2 extractors on it to grab that shell and pull it out of the chamber. Now these are chambered in 2 3/4 and 3-inch shells. I believe you can get 3.5-inch Magnum Mossberg 500s as well. But for me, 2 3/4 and 3-inch is good enough. Now there are many different variations of the Model 500 shotgun. This is obviously a Maverick 88 in 12 gauge, but they also make the 500 in a 500A, which is a 12 gauge. They made a 500AB, which was a 12 gauge. They made a 500C, which was a 20 gauge, a 500E, which is a 410 gauge, or a 410 bore rather, and they made various different other models within those nomenclatures as well. So this wasn't the first one I bought. This was the second or third 12 gauge that I had bought. Let me grab you another one and show you one of my favorite models. Now this particular beauty, this is a Mossberg 500 ATP. The A stands for 12 gauge, the T and P stands for tactical and police. And from what I've read, the ATP was actually the precursor to the 590, which was the military issued shotgun. This particular one came in various different configurations. You could have got it with a pistol grip, with a bantam stock, which is what this is. It's basically a youth length stock, so it's a lot shorter length of pull for clearing buildings and things like that. It also came with this nice heat shield from the factory. This particular one I picked up at Cabela's, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago for about $350. I wish I could find another one because I'd buy it in a heartbeat. Very well made. The action on this is extremely smooth and buttery. The heat shield just makes it look super cool. But this is another variation of the 12 gauge, the 500A. Again, this is a 500 ATP. 12 gauge stands for the A, and then the TP stands for tactical and police. Now, they made these in stainless steel models as well, which was called the Mariner. They also made the 590A1, which again, 12 gauge shotgun, same basic setup. The only difference is the trigger guards on those were steel, and they were a little bit more high end than this particular one. Some of them had different finishes on them, but it's the same basic shotgun. So they made the 500 shotguns in 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 410 bore, and actually 16 gauge for a little while. I don't have a 16 gauge. I don't really care to get one because it's really hard to find 16 gauge, although it seems that that's on a lot of shelves because nobody shoots it. But this is my second 12 gauge that I have. This is a 500 ATP. Now, moving on down the line, another one I have is the 500C, which is a 20 gauge. And yes, it looks just like the 12 gauges I have. The wood is a little bit different. The checkering on the foregrip is a little bit different, but largely it's the same gun. Has the same type of action, the same trigger setup. Parts are not really that interchangeable between the different gauge models that you have. So 12 gauge and 20 gauge, certain things will interchange, like the stocks a little bit, but other parts, the slides and all that stuff obviously won't interchange because the action is a little bit narrower. But this particular one, this was actually sold by Sears in the 1970s. It has a really cool jeweled bolt. So you can see, or scalloped rather, it has all these scallops here on the bolt and the lifter. And part of the reason why I have so many Mossberg 500s or variants thereof, once you learn how to use one, they're all the same. So the 500 series, your safety is up here on the back of the receiver. Back is safe, forward is fire. All the 500 and 590 series have that type of a safety on it. The Maverick 88s have a cross bolt safety down here in the trigger guard. So you push it one way, it's safe. You push it the other way, it's fire. But other than that, all the controls are the same. On the bottom of it, you have a button back here on the back of the trigger. This is to release your slide. So if you have a round in the chamber or you haven't just fired it, the slide is going to be locked. You have to push this button down, slide the action back, and then slide forward to load a round in the chamber. That's the same on all of them. The pump action is the same. The takedown on these is the same. So slide the slide about halfway back, loosen this nut on the top of the magazine tube, and you can slide the barrel right out. Takedown's the same no matter what bore you get, or what caliber you get, gauge rather. So I can pull that guy right out. They're diverse in the fact that I can change the barrel. This is a 24-inch slug barrel with rifle sights on it. I can take this off. I can put an 18.5-inch barrel. I can put a 20-inch, a 28, a 26, a 30-inch barrel. Whatever you can find for the same bore that you have, in this case, or gauge rather, in a 20 gauge, I could get any size barrel, any length, a rifled barrel, a smooth bore barrel, any length, as long as it's a 20 gauge for a Mossberg 500 or a Maverick 88 will fit on this gun. So diversity to be able to change out barrels from smooth bore to rifled bore and other things like that is another reason I really like the Mossberg 500 shotguns. Now, I'm going to grab another one here. This is my 410 bore variant. Again, same basic action. Safety still here on the back of the receiver. Still has the same lever to pump the action. Everything about it is exactly the same on how you use this gun. This one right now happens to have an 18.5-inch barrel. I also have a 24-inch barrel that has a choke machined into it. This one was cut down actually for home defense, and people say that, you know, 410 is not really a good home defense round, but at 1,800 feet per second, if you either have some buckshot or some slugs in this thing, you can bet that this thing is going to pack a punch. A 1/5 or a 1/4 ounce slug going 1,800 feet per second out of this gun is going to do some damage. Or some, you know, 4 or 5 pellet buckshot, triple-aught buck coming out of this thing at 1,400 or 1,600 feet per second is certainly going to do some damage to anybody wanting to do harm to you. So 410, it's a short, nice package. It still packs enough of a punch. It doesn't have nearly as much recoil. I have no problem using this for home defense. Now, I would not particularly use this gun to go out and do skeet shooting or trap shooting. I've tried it, and you end up just wasting expensive ammo because there's not enough shot really, unless you're an exceptional shot. There's not enough shot inside one of these little tiny cartridges to be able to hit those clays very easily. So for those of you like myself that are not great at trap shooting or sporting clays, I recommend at least a 20 gauge. The 410, it's a great range gun. It's good for getting people used to shooting shotguns, how to learn the function of the gun and things like that. But I wouldn't necessarily use this one for sporting clays. It'd be great for, you know, squirrel hunting, pheasant hunting, things like that, because you can get a pretty good tight pattern as long as you have the correct choke in the gun and things like that, and you're not going to have a ton of shot coming out of this thing. So 410, one of my favorites. It's like the 22 of shotguns. But let me go ahead and show you another Mossberg variant that I have. Now this one you guys have seen recently. This is my Maverick 88 20 gauge cruiser that I put together. And again, this one being a Maverick 88 has the cross bolt safety in the trigger guard. So this is your safety down here. Instead of being on the back of the receiver, it's down here in the trigger guard. But otherwise the controls are the same. Still has that same lever down here to push to rack the slide. Still has the same loading and unloading functions. Still has the same takedown. You slide the action halfway back. Take down this screw right here and the barrel comes off. So really, why do I like the Mossberg 500 shotguns? They're very diverse. They're diverse in the calibers you can get them in. They're diverse in the barrel configurations you can get them in. They're diverse in the stock options. You can get, again, pistol grips like this. You can get bird's head grips. You can get all the way down to a 14-inch barrel with some of the Mossberg models. You can get 18.5-inch security barrels. You can get 5-round magazine tubes. You can get 8-round magazine tubes. You can get just about any caliber you want or any bore you want. 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 410 bore, 16 gauge if you really wanted to find one. The other nice thing about these, they've been private labeled by a couple different companies. I think Revelation and New Haven also private labeled the shotgun. So a New Haven Model 600 was a Mossberg 500. I forget what the other ones were, but there was a couple different companies that private labeled these as well. So you can go into a used gun section of a store a lot of times and find like an old New Haven 600, which is the same thing as a Mossberg 500 for dirt cheap, like $100, $150 sometimes you can go find those guns, because nobody knows that it's just a Mossberg 500, but it's the same gun. So they're diverse, they're flexible, you can do all kinds of different arrangements with them. They're reliable. That's one of the biggest reasons that I like them. Time and time again, I've taken my Mossberg 500s out to do trap shooting and skeet shooting, and I've had them keep running when I've seen the 870s fail because the extractors can't pull the rounds out of the chamber when they get really hot. There's a reason why the military used the 500 series or the 590 series for many years, all the way through the 80s up into the 90s and things like that. So they're diverse, they're reliable, they're relatively inexpensive. Most of the shotguns I have here were $300 or less. Again, with the exception of that 500 ATP that I bought from Cabela's. Realistically, I probably could have got it cheaper somewhere else, but Cabela's being what it is, large retail store, they don't really mark stuff down very low. So I think I paid at the top end of that one. But now, if I were to sell that gun, it would be a $500 or $600 gun, just because prices have skyrocketed so much. This little 20 gauge Maverick 88 was only about $250. This 8-shot Maverick 88 12 gauge, when I bought it, was $200. Like, out the door with tax, it was about $215. And this is all the shotgun you really ever need, especially for that price. I mean, it's a fantastic shotgun. Same reliability as the Mossberg 500. The only difference is it has that little cross-bolt safety. And instead of saying Mossberg 500 on it, it says Maverick 88. They're made in Eagle Pass, Texas. They're still made in the USA. They still have a good warranty on them. And I've had no issues with this gun whatsoever. You've seen this one in videos where I put shorty shells in it with an OPSOL adapter, which is what I have in it right now. This one stays loaded up with about 13 rounds of buckshot in my safe. So this was one of the first guns I would grab if I ever needed to grab a shotgun in self-defense. And I have 13 rounds of shorty shells loaded up into this gun. So in my opinion, Mossberg 500, the New Haven 600, you really can't go wrong with those shotguns. They're a great value for what you pay for them. They're reliable, they're versatile, and they're just a lot of fun to shoot. You can't really get any better than a good old-fashioned pump-action shotgun. I mean, maybe a double barrel. They're a lot of fun too. But these ones, for the capacity, the reliability, the versatility, you really can't beat a Mossberg 500 shotgun. And for those reasons, that's why I wanted this gun and the other ones as well. I've had several more, but right now I'm at 5 Mossberg 500 shotguns. No, I don't need them all. You can't shoot them all at the same time, but being a collector and an avid shooter, I like having variety in my collection. So that's going to do it for this edition of Cranky Gun Reviews. Why I wanted this gun, the Mossberg 500 variation shotguns, the Maverick 88 shotguns. I just love these guns. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. God bless America. Make sure you support your two-way rights. Get out there and shoot. And you remember, when somebody tells you to give up some of your freedom for the greater good, remind them that freedom is the greater good. Have a great day.